listed under your education. I guess my first question is, do you have an MBA? And a follow-up to that is, do you think one is necessary to pursue a career in consulting?
No, I do not have an MBA. Do I think it's necessary? No, obviously. I mean, I'm a testament to that. In addition, if you look at my LinkedIn profile, and maybe it's not in LinkedIn, but my undergraduate major is in theater arts. So to take things a step further, not only do I not have an MBA, I don't even have like a business or computer science or typical degree that usually lands in consulting. So I think that MBAs, I like to think of MBAs and a lot of different, any masters, and as well as a lot of certifications that you can get in industry. I like to think of them as seasoning, right? You can have a great meal that maybe that meal isn't so great because it needs some seasoning. And I think every person's unique. I was fortunate enough to work for some incredibly talented people at some incredibly challenging clients where I was able to obtain the seasoning that I needed without needing to go and get an MBA. But, if you come out of undergrad and go to a company that maybe doesn't provide you that seasoning or, are unlucky with the types of projects that you get staffed on, you may get a point a couple years into your career where you're like, you know what, I want to recalibrate, go back and get that MBA, and that might be the seasoning that I need. I think every person's unique, every situation's unique. So I would never counsel someone to get one, nor would I ever counsel someone to not get one. I would rather, meet with that individual, learn about their unique situation, and help them make an informed decision for themselves.
All right, I think I can follow up May's question with two questions. I don't know if you would be willing to share them with us. So the first one is, what has been your biggest challenge as a consultant? Like, could you speak to us about your biggest challenge? And the second one is, how did you overcome your fears, your anxieties when founding Kenway Consulting? That is, if you had fears anyway. So, thank you.
The second question is an easy one. No, I didn't. I was pretty fearless. I was only 33 years old when I started Kenway, and I was single, had no kids, no major responsibilities, and I think the fact that I had just myself to feed, it was a risk worth taking, and it was more invigorating, exciting, and exhilarating than it was anxiety riddled. Definitely have had some concerning times, the 2008 financial crisis, the pandemic. I mean, there were times when anxieties crept in, but they didn't have to do with starting the company. They had to do with dealing with financial ramifications and what happens to employees if we end up losing revenue, that sort of thing. In terms of biggest challenges, I don't know if I'm going to cheat by answering the question this way, but I think for me the biggest challenge didn't have to do with consulting. I think the biggest challenge was more of as an entrepreneur and starting my own business, it was learning and recognizing, and I kind of alluded to this when I answered May's question about the MBA, is learning and recognizing that every single person is so incredibly, wonderfully unique. And as a manager, as a CEO and running a company and growing a company, you can very easily get into a mindset that there's a way to manage people, and there isn't. There's literally however many people there are on the planet, there are that many ways to manage. And I think something that I'm pretty proud of, and far from perfect, but pretty proud of, is how focused I've been and how focused we've made Kenway's leadership be at really understanding the unique wonderfulness of every person and tailoring our management style to that person. And it's time consuming, takes a lot of effort. But if you're on the receiving end of that management and you're feeling like you are being treated the way you're treated because it's you, it's a pretty powerful feeling, to know that you're being, talked to or coached by a CEO or a managing director, and you're being coached that way because of who you are and like content of your character, the merit of your performance. and not just because you're, this career level and that you've been there for 2 years, like very vanilla and canned. So I think the biggest challenge was learning that, and then creating a structure that respects and really leans into that concept.
All right. I think I can just ask one last question. I promise this is the last one. So, what do you think about the future of consulting? Perhaps, maybe in light of what's or the trends we see in today's world, trends like, technology and automation and the explosion of data, or sustainability and sustainable development goals, climate change and all of that, or just what is going on in our societies with regard to, people and respect for different people regardless of their background or beliefs or opinions. Like, do any of these trends have an impact on consulting, or will they have an impact on consulting in the future?
In terms of the nature of what consultants do, I have no doubt that there will be many disruptions. But I'm not going to try to bust out the crystal ball and predict what those are. What I will say is, there's a statement that I've made this goes back to my days at Accenture. It's a statement I make to clients all the time. And I say, if something is in your core competency, do it. Train people to do it. And when I say your, I mean the companies. Train people on how to do it, get better at it, get more efficient at it. Just keep focusing on that core competency. But if something is outside of your core competency, outsource it. That's what I say. That's a statement that I've been saying for 30 years. If you think about what that statement is saying, it's saying, if you're a bank, hire people that know deposits and loans and interest rates and asset servicing and et cetera, et cetera. But should a bank hire IT people? My argument would be no. Outsource more of your IT. Should they hire HR people? I'd say no. Now, I'm not going to get my way, because a lot of companies will hire their IT staff. They will hire their HR staff. But if you think about it, a bank's core competency has to do with asset management, right? Deposits and loans. What I see happening in the world is, I'm seeing at a microcosmic level more and more outsourcing. Used to be, if you needed to get someplace, you got in your own car and you drove it. You insourced it. Nowadays, more and more people are using Uber to get from point A to point B. They're outsourcing it. So they're saying, my core competency isn't being a car owner. My core competency is being me, like shopping when I need to shop, going to a restaurant when I want to go to a restaurant, going to a movie when I want to go to a movie. That's my core competency. But one core competency that I don't want to do is being a driver. It's not what I want. I don't want to own a car. So I outsource it, right? I'm using Uber. I'm using that as a microcosmic example, but I see more and more of that happening in industry as well. Think about, I don't know if many of you are techies, but more and more companies are taking their on-premises data centers and moving it to the cloud, right? They're taking what they used to insource, infrastructure, architecture, data center management, and they're outsourcing it to the cloud, right? So more and more companies are outsourcing stuff. More and more people are outsourcing stuff. And if you think about it, that Uber driver is he's a consultant. She's a consultant. She's getting you from point A to point B in the most cost-effective and efficient way that she can. And I think of the data centers that are now in the cloud, those cloud companies are consultants. They're providing a niche skill that the company in question has decided not to pursue anymore. So I'm answering your question in a really roundabout way, but I think consulting is only going to grow, because I think more and more companies are going to look at themselves and say, I'm going to specialize in what I know I'm good at, and I'm going to outsource what I'm not. And so consultants are all the people that do that stuff that they're not.
Thank you very much.
I think we have time for one last question, if anyone just has any final thoughts that they'd like to share with the group. I guess I can go ahead. And I noticed when you were presenting that you mentioned that you had lived in or worked in London for a year. I was wondering if you could just touch a little bit on that experience, just because I know I'm definitely considering doing some kind of summer abroad or go study internationally at some point in my life. And so I would just love to hear your experience on just really immersing yourself in another culture.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I graduated undergrad. I knew, I mean, I was a theater major and I really wanted to act, but I also knew that that probably wasn't going to, be a long-term gig unless I got really, really lucky. So it was great to go to London and experience another culture. I feel like it was almost like another degree, like learning how to live in another culture with the ease of also not having to learn another language. And Yeah, I also from there I launched into a 2 month backpacking excursion by myself at the end of my year there, and that was a wonderful experience as well, seeing all those cultures and countries. I think if you're lucky enough and positioned enough that you could afford to do something like that, I thought it was a wonderful experience for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really good insight to hear and definitely something I'm going to consider. So I think because we just have a few minutes left, I will just end by saying thank you so much for coming to speak to us. I know I especially appreciated your insight on integrity and really focusing on the means over the outcomes. I know that's something that I'm going to try to focus on, especially at the beginning of our careers, where we're really trying to have these formative experiences and understandings of what is ethical business. And so it seems like others have already been connecting with you on LinkedIn, but if it's okay with you, and if that's the best way for them to reach out, maybe you guys can connect with Brian or message him or whatever if you have any questions. And again, thank you so much for coming to speak to us. I hope everyone is also enjoying the conference. And let Jack and I know if you have any questions at all.
Oh, it's great. I was going to actually mention that I encourage all of you to get LinkedIn. If I can be of any help with questions you might have, follow-ups, would be happy to help.
Well,
Amazing.
thank you.
Well, thank you all for coming.
Thank
Thanks, everyone.
you.
Have a great rest of the conference.
All
Thank
right. Thank
you.
you.
Bye bye.